Good afternoon and welcome to the Engineering Talent Awards nominee interviews. This is a series of webinar interviews led by myself and Fayon Dixon in discussion with those who have been nominated at this year's awards. The awards were of course scheduled to take place in April, but due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic are now scheduled to take place on the 9th of September. A link to this and all the webinars in this series will be available for sharing once each is complete. In today's webinar, I'm here talking to Rachel Green, who is nominated for Engineering Apprentice of the Year. Rachel Green is Cadent's standout apprentice of the past few years, having successfully completed the Emergency Craftsperson Apprenticeship. In the statement nominating Rachel for the awards, she is described as a dedicated, conscientious employee who is always willing to offer a helping hand to others. High praise indeed. Welcome to Rachel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much. How are you?
Good, a little bit warm, but all good. So just to explain the format, I will go through and ask Rachel a few pre-prepared questions and hopefully get into a discussion. And during the webinar, at any point, you can submit questions in the Q&A down below. And then at the end, any questions that have been submitted, I will go ahead and ask Rachel. So Rachel, if you're ready, shall we dive straight in?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So Rachel, could you explain what you do on a day-to-day basis as an engineer?
Well, I work for Cadent. We're the gas engineer network providers for the Northwest, East Midlands, London area, with the central area of the UK. And we attend gas emergencies, such as if people smell gas, if they have low pressure, if they smell gas inside or outside as well. Generally trying to keep the public safe and making sure we maintain and operate the network. But I'm on the emergency response side of things. For first call operative is my official title. So yeah, it's quite a varied job, but it's good and it's exciting.
So being effectively on the emergency response squad, that must mean, I'm assuming that works very quickly in real time. So is it, I sort of imagine it a little bit like the fire brigade. So you get a call and you go. It's not like people book in an appointment weeks or months in advance.
No, the emergency side of it, yes. It literally is a member of the public will call the emergency number, and then we get the job sent down to us. It works on localized areas, so obviously, so we're always within a set time that we have to make sure that we get there to keep the public safe. There are some appointments that are booked in. We do another side of work where we work on meters or installations if people want a new gas supply or a supply removing and that kind of thing. They're the ones booked in, but the majority of our work is on the emergency response basis, yeah.
So it's a very dramatic side of engineering, really, on a day-to-day basis.
Dramatic, yeah. Maybe there are some moments where it's a bit like, right, okay, but no, it's good. It's all very well regulated and make sure we've got a good safety head on. So it's but we do have those moments where it's you walk up and there's fire engines and police engines and you all
Wow.
and it's like, okay, I'm in charge now. Yep. So at the beginning, that was daunting. But it's almost like you become used to it. So you just walk up and it's into gas mode, safety mode.
Yeah, so as an apprentice, obviously, as you say, I imagine the first time you did that was probably very intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not the kind of situation you normally find yourself in. So when I was going out at first, and yeah, it was one of those where I was kind of hiding behind my mentor at the beginning. So.
And I guess you need, you know, as well as obviously all the technical skills that you would learn, I guess you need a certain sort of personality type in a way to sort of be able to go into a situation like that, keep a cool head and you know, and go through the process.
Yeah, I suppose in the past I never really thought myself as that type of personality, but I've shocked myself in that I can just go in and just completely, like you say, keep a cool head. I'm a very much a process kind of person. So if you give me a list of safety procedures, I will follow that list of safety procedures. But then you do have to make sure that you've got everything in your aspects, a bit of lateral thinking at the same time. So yeah, I think it may take a certain type of person. I know I'm flapper. You're not allowed to flap in that kind of situations.
Oh, no, absolutely. So was this always an industry that interested you?
I have to admit, I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would become a gas engineer. But yeah, in my background is very different to this. And when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a psychologist. Yeah,
A little bit different then.
yeah, just a tad. Have my own therapy practice. That was always the dream. But weirdly enough, that when I think about it, my family have always been in the gas industry. My dad was an engineer for the Merchant Navy, so he
Wow.
used to be crawling along inside the engines, inside the ships, and worked in. And he then worked into the gas industry when he left there. My uncle was as a gas engineer. My sister, who's recently left Cadent, but was working for them for I think 13, 14 years. My last job was at British Gas. So it was like, I've got a very good technical understanding of the background of the gas industry. So when I actually think about it, I suppose, yeah, it's been leading up to this, but it's just never,
Family affair.
yeah, never something I actually thought of. So
Wow. But yeah, I can see how yeah, it very much is sort of a family affair. So it was obviously there somewhere, sort of in the background, in the
yeah,
subconscious.
my dad trained me as a child to work with tools. I was always the one underneath the floors with a hard hat on, passing him his hammer. When,
That's brilliant. My grandfather was a mechanical engineer, and he tried with me, but I don't think the interest was really there.
and my sister did. My sister was reading books in the corner. I was the one outside helping him.
So throughout your role and your apprenticeship, have you ever had to overcome any adversity? And if so, can you explain? What a big question, that one.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question. And there are a few things in my personal life which I suppose that if I really thought about it could be adversity, but I'm that kind of person where I don't really like to think of things as an adverse situation, and rather than a challenge that I can overcome, and try and put a positive spin on it, and things that have just basically ultimately made me the person I am today. And I suppose when I was thinking about in the job, I mean, Cadent is brilliant in terms of like diversity, and being a female would have been the main thing that I would have thought would have been could have held me back or made me stand out. And I have to admit, when I first started, I used to feel like a bit of an alien. Like when I was walking across the yard, which is basically our depot at work, what we call the yard, where all the vans are, and people would like look at me and like, "Oh my god, it's a girl." Um, or when I was going into a customer's house, and they had that, "Oh, right." Right, because it was like the gas man, no, it's a girl, she's here, it's that kind of situation. So it was out there on the patch, and what I would have explained that may have been what I'd have to overcome. But when I've done a little bit of analytical thinking about it since you posed this question to me, David, that actually it's a perception that we just need to change. And it may have been that because at the moment I'm the only female gas engineer in the Manchester district,
Wow.
working for Cadent. So I think it was just a case of changing that perception, that they just wasn't used to seeing it. And also it was my perception that needed to be changed, in that I was creating that adversity possibly for myself and placing my own barriers in the way, that because I was feeling like I was being looked at like an alien, and they were probably just thinking, "Oh, who's that? Not seen that person before," neither man nor woman. And when I was expecting the customers to have that adverse reaction when I walked into their house. So it was my own perception that I almost needed to change as well. Because I have to say, customers, when you walk in, they're fantastic. They like half of them. I've literally had in 2.5 years one person who had a negative reaction to it. So a lot of them just think it's fantastic, especially the which may shock people, the older community, because basically I'll sit and have a brew with them and have a chat.
Which I'm
So
sure they love.
yeah, so it's, I suppose that like I say, adversity that I may have created myself initially, but in terms of actually out there, I wouldn't say there have been many barriers, a few, like I say, but I suppose being from the LGBTQ community as well, it's something else to add in.
Yes.
But it's only small things, nothing that I would say that has really stood in my way of becoming who I want. And like I say, I see it as a challenge, and I'd like to think it's just made me who I am and put me forward.
I think that's brilliant. And I think there's a real positivity in that response, which is nice because, so often we do focus on the ongoing adversity, which is so important that, many various minorities do come up against. But actually, it's great to note when we do feel that change is happening, and hopefully you won't be the only woman in the Manchester region for much longer. Do you know if there are any other apprentices coming up that are women, or is it really just you at the moment?
I think there are. There are in other areas, like
Great.
in Liverpool. I know. I think she's qualifying at the end of this year, so in August. And I think there is another girl on the first year of her intake as well. There are actually some, I think, videos all on our Facebook pages, on Cadence Facebook pages, all about the different female engineers that are coming up, and we do try and promote it. So I think generally around the country we really do push the equality, because we have I think I personally have a special skill set of talking non-stop, so I think
you and I match on that one, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's something that is special that we can bring as well. But it's it's something that is definitely being pushed within Caden itself.
That's brilliant. And as I said, it's nice to have a bit of a positive message on that sometimes, because you still hear mixed things in various parts of, engineering, which, perhaps historically has been seen as quite a masculine trade. I've talked on some of the other podcasts about how, perhaps young girls at school don't see such a visual, as maybe as considered career option to go into engineering. So it is just nice to hear that, things are changing. It's a positive message.
That's something actually. Last January, my girlfriend's teacher.
Wow.
And within her year one, her school, she teaches in year one, and her school really wanted to focus on women in male-based roles, because they have a lot of children from more disadvantaged areas. So I was asked, along with some other professions. I think there was a policewoman there, a lawyer, BBC, worked for the BBC. We all went in and spoke to the year 6 girls about career prospects. And pushed it, and that was something that the school asked me to do, and Caden did support me in doing. So we're trying to get it back to the roots and getting it back to those STEM subjects, and seeing that those are important, but not for what you thought. Because when I was at school, again, I didn't even really know about apprenticeships. It was mainly, I was always, right, you go to school, you go to college, you go to university, you get a job. Yes. And it was always, I was never pushed into the direction of engineering or that kind of role. So it's nice to see that the world is changing a little bit, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And it definitely starts with education, obviously. It's a very obvious thing to say. But when I was at school, I mean, they sort of mentioned apprenticeships, but it was always kind of glossed over. It was like, but what you really want to do is to go to university. But actually, an apprenticeship is such a wonderful way to access so many varied careers, that in hindsight, I think it's very sad that, that they can sometimes get sort of just brushed over. Or, as you said, not even mentioned necessarily at all.
No, well, it was a long time ago that I was at school. So,
quite long as well, I'm sure. So let's not talk about that. So moving quickly on from that, what would you say to anybody else who's considering perhaps a career change to engineering? Because obviously I know you changed career yourself to engineering. Would you have any advice for someone who might also be thinking about changing a career?
Well, the main thing I can always say, which may sound cheesy, is just go for it. Yeah, it was, like I say, it's something that I'd never considered. But I was in a situation where in my previous job where I was just working for the sake of working, because when I came out of university, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went into a job and I just started to progress within that role. I think that it's a very rewarding career. It's completely different to what you may expect it to be. A lot of people may think, oh, well, I'm not really any good with tools, or I'm not really any good with that kind of, engineering or thinking about systems or anything, but that can all be taught. Me personally, like I said, my dad we call him Mr. DIY, because he literally can just do anything. It's ridiculous. But so I had that little bit of background in being able to pick up a tool and know what to do with it. But in that whole thing can be taught. So it's never too late to try again. And that's one of the main things that I've always pushed when I've helped Caden in many ways, like with the promoting of apprenticeships to the older and female community, is that you there are so many transferable skills that you will have learned throughout your previous time, whether it be in education or whether, like myself, you have had a previous job. You will have built skills up within that job that you actually probably don't know you have until you sit down and really look at yourself. And if you write those down and think about that and say, right, okay, this is what I can do, where can I transfer that to? Like, my particular skill set is, I believe, customer service. I've always been very good at people, very interested in behaviour, how people interact, how people work together as teams. So that's where I transferred myself over, in that I know that this role that I particularly do is within customers' homes, where they're probably scared and they're probably worried and they're probably thinking that something really bad's going to happen. So I can go in and use my particular skill set to calm them down and make them understand and make them safe. I'm not there to do anything negative. I'm literally there to make sure that they are safe. So I'd say that was the biggest thing that I learned. So that would be my main piece of advice. You're not just a job, you're so many skill sets, and those skills can be pushed to wherever you need them to go. So just sit down and think about it. And it's such a rewarding career, especially that this was a massive change in my life. If I look back in my life, like I was looking back at my Facebook memories this morning, about 3 years ago, my life's so different to back then. And
in a good way, I'm hoping.
majorly in a good way. I can't even explain about how much of a positive change this has brought to my life, because it's not just a job, it's a career.
That's wonderful to hear, and I think that's a really positive message, as to answer the question for anybody who might be thinking about a change, especially into engineering. And transferable skills is something that I, on a personal note, I'm really passionate about, because I'm an ex-dancer, and I think a lot of my friends, when they finish dancing, as you have to do at a certain age, didn't really know they had any transferable skills, and you have so many. Do you think, I mean, obviously customer service is a wonderful background, I think probably to change into anything really, unless you're going to go and work by yourself in a lighthouse. Do you think your experience in customer service gave you a bit of a sort of a leg up perhaps in this role, something that perhaps not everybody has?
Possibly. I constantly have this conversation with my girlfriend that she will not pick up the phone and talk to anyone on the phone. I have to make every single phone call, because of my background I worked in a call centre. So, I mean, before that, I was in my teens and still made my mum phone the doctors for me. But then I got so used to being able just to have a conversation with someone. Yeah. That was one of the things my ex-bosses used to always praise with me, or have a go and say I took too long on the phone because I was having too much of a conversation. But I suppose in that way it has helped me. But they do teach customer service skills as well. Yes, on our apprentice course, it's one thing that they try and help with, and how to deal with customers. I've recently been involved actually with a customer satisfaction deployment and training. Sorry, I can't think of the word training then. Where we've made, I was asked to help with some of the senior managers across the Northwest to create a training video. Which I played an angry customer, and and then that developed into helping develop the course and develop the skills and how to help with customer service, because it's Cadence aim to be one of the top network for customer service and keeping customers happy. So it's something that is taught throughout, not just only on the apprenticeship but in the scheme itself. So although I came in with that background, so I may, and obviously because of my skills, have been asked to be involved in the course itself. And before I even finished my apprenticeship, they asked me to do it. So I was just like, brilliant. It's not something that's vital, because, like I say, everyone has a different skill set. So it's helped me in that area, but I needed to learn more of the engineering, where we have a lot of engineers who come in from the side of maybe being a boiler technician. Right. So they have the skills there. So, but then we teach them the customer service as well. So it may have helped us. It helped me personally, but like I say, everyone has their own strengths.
Fantastic. I mean, that's something, I guess, I think that's brilliant. I wouldn't necessarily, as somebody that knew absolutely nothing about it, I wouldn't necessarily have thought that as part of the training, you would go through customer service, but it makes such complete sense because it's part of the whole thing. So I think that's great. Just a reminder to anybody watching, if you want to ask any questions, you can put them in. I love doing the finger pointy thing. That's the main reason I ask. You can submit those in the Q&A section. So moving on. This is I think quite a nice question. You obviously were nominated for this award. How does that feel?
Heartwarming, to be really cheesy about it. It was, I was lucky in that I got relatively a lot of praise during my apprenticeship. And
it's not just luck. I think that's also definitely some skill.
Thank you. I got put forward for when we finished, we have like an internal award ceremony, and I got outstanding contribution amongst all of the different apprentice schemes for my year's intake, which was that was a shock, and that was nice. But I was wearing a nice dress, so I looked good to go and pick the award up, so that was fine. But
you're a stranger to being nominated for things.
No, it's I'm not a stranger, but it's still kind of unexpected. I've always been someone who has a little bit of low confidence in themselves, and just because I don't want to be big-headed, but I suppose sometimes it can tip the balance the other way. So it was really nice. I was on I just finished a gas escape, and I was checking my phone for messages, obviously, once we go back into the van, and I read the email, and I was just like, I think I welled up a little bit, because it was just like, oh my God, I can't actually believe that someone's thought of me to do this. And the thing is, we have got a really brilliant team in Caden who like to push people forward and promote the positives rather than look at the negatives. So it's I'm not surprised it's happened because of the company itself, but I was surprised it was me, but really, really, really like touched that it was.
That's lovely. Is there, I mean, again, this is one of those sort of big questions, I guess, but I mean, obviously you changed career, but what made you decide to do it? Because I think that's something to go into engineering. I know obviously it's in your family, but was it something that you'd thought about for a while, or did you just wake up one day and go, that's it, I need to change?
Well, like I said, I got into a kind of going to work for working sake. I wasn't happy. There were a few reasons in my personal life that I wasn't happy as well, but in the career I just got into a particular manager that wasn't very nice to work for, and everything was just on a little bit of a downward spiral. So I was like, right, get out. But I didn't know where to go. And then it was my sister who actually, like I say, she until recently worked for Cadent, and she's worked for National Grid, then Cadent, for like 13, 14 years. And she sent me the link because she knew I was looking, and she said, "You're a tomboy, have a go." she just knew that they basically, like, because we're close as a family, she knew my skill set, and she knew that my background and the fact that I've always helped my dad with the DIY and tools and been good at it, that she thought I would be a good fit. So that's how I got into it. Honestly, it wasn't a case of I really thought about it. It was put in front of me, which is why I think now it's important to publicize it, and why I've gotten so strong with the publication teams on online and events, to make sure that people are aware of it, because it's something that, like I say, when I was younger, I wasn't aware of it, and even when I got older, I wasn't aware of it. So I'm very strong about promoting it and making sure people are aware of this career choice is there for them.
That's brilliant. It's lovely to share what you've been given. I think that's fabulous. Was there anything when you started your training? Because obviously, as you say, you wanted to change. Your sister made the suggestion. You jumped across. With engineering in general, and obviously dealing with gas, was there anything that surprised you? Because you probably had a good overall understanding, given your sort of family background. But is there anything that that you were surprised about when you started your apprenticeship? The reason I ask is just because for me, it all sounds very sort of dramatic, and I wouldn't really even know where to begin. It's not something that enters my sort of, world of consciousness. So, I mean, it's perfectly fine to say you went in and it was exactly as you expected, because maybe it was.
I think because of the way you go through the application process, it's very clear about what you're applying for.
Right.
So they make it clear it is a gas emergency. There are different types of apprenticeships that we have. We have emergency, we have where you can go into or operate and maintain, where you're looking after the systems in the background, or a repair where you're actually doing the digging. I did not want to do that. So it was, they're very clear about what it is. I suppose what shocked me was just the speed that it all happened, because there is so much that you need to learn. It's not just tools. Like the majority of our training is out on the patch with a mentor. So you're going around with them on live jobs and you learn as you go. Because they're the experts, they're the ones that do it day to day. I had a fantastic mentor called Luke Henshaw. He was absolutely amazing. Couldn't have done better, to be honest. Mainly because sometimes we sat in the van and sang, so it was really fun. But but it was he was fantastic, and I learned a lot from him. But there is so much classroom-based learning. Like we were learning A-level physics at one point, to do with equations on how you change, when we were learning about carbon monoxide, for example, how incomplete combustion changes it rather than from carbon dioxide and water to carbon monoxide. And there's so many things now, and I try and educate customers about that now, because people know they have to have the alarm, but they don't know why. So situations like that, but there is so much learning. That's something that I don't think I really knew that was going to be there. Which something that I was asked when I was doing the promotion to make sure people knew, because I went in on the days where new applicants were coming in for their interviews, where the practical based interviews. I was asked to go in and help them sit there, get if they had any questions, any chatting, and they basically said to me, Rachel, will you make sure that they know they have to actually study? And just because I've always been a very studious person, so that didn't faze me. I've always done very much straight A student, make sure you get your homework in on time kind of person. I think that was the one thing that took me aback about the actual course itself. But apart from that, I knew what the job entailed, but it was just so detailed and so fast. And it is an emergency at the end of the day.
So. What was it that drew you to doing the emergency course? I understand why you didn't do the groundworks.
Yeah, I didn't want to get dirt under my nails. No, but I do constantly come home absolutely filthy. I think it was the fact that I could help people. I'm that first person there on the scene, making sure that they're safe, and it's making sure that the customers and the general public know that we're there looking after them. And I think that drew me to it, the personal side of it. I have a lot of interaction with customers in their own homes and outside their homes and in businesses. So it makes sure that, that was, I think, what drew me. Again, that's my background, that's my love, it's my passion. So.
Well, as I said before, to me, gas escapes sound very dramatic. I'm sure they're hopefully not quite as dramatic as I'm picturing them. But I guess, was that something that you were more drawn to, as in doing something? You said about helping people. I guess it's very immediate. So there must be quite a sense of gratification when you leave and somebody's feeling, sort of safe again.
Yes. Yeah. It's nice, I suppose. When I was younger, when I was a lot younger, I did consider fireman as a job, but then that was like a fleeting thing. Then I went back to psychology. But I think that knowing that I can walk out of customer's house, because I don't leave a customer's home until they actually say, I can say to them, are you okay? Are you happy? Do you have any questions? Are you happy for me to leave? So I won't leave until they say that. So if they know everything that they need to know, but they know that we do leave them contacts so that they can contact us after as well. We make sure we're a full service. We don't just go, right, bye, you're on your own. It's so nice. Sometimes you do walk out and you do get people, saying like, thank you so much and everything, or like, you've been fantastic, or, can I give you a 10 on a survey? That's my favorite one. And it's just,
yes, please.
I'm like, yes, please. My boss will like that. So I think there's moments like that when you do walk out and it's just a little bit like, chest puffed out, like, yeah, that's really nice. And it's like, it's just nice to know that I've helped someone and I've made them feel safe.
It's wonderful to have a role as well, I think, where you get that, sort of instant feedback, because there are so many jobs, in this day and age, if you're working in an office where you could be really helping somebody, but you might not actually get that interaction. You might not get to see how you've helped somebody. So I think that's fantastic. I can certainly see why people would be drawn to a career doing that. What was it like doing your first call out? I mean, I'm assuming obviously initially you follow, is it always, do you ever go by yourself, or is there always two of you? When you do an apprenticeship, I'm assuming you shadow for a long time, but I'm assuming there comes a point where it's like, this is your first one where you're flying like the lead, as it were.
Yeah, towards the end, it's encouraged that basically your mentor will either stay outside the property or stay in the van.
Right.
So the majority of the time, it builds up at first, you're just watching. You're just watching what they do. Then it's a case of, then you start to help. And then it's a case of they're there with you, but you're doing it. And then it's a case of they're like stood at the door. And then they'll gradually get a bit further and further, and then in the van. And then it got to a point where I was going in, I was doing the whole job, and then I was walking out, telling my mentor a breakdown step by step exactly what I'd done. And he was like, right, yeah, done. So that first time when I went in on my own, absolutely petrified. But I had a long, strong base of learning to fall back on. So it's like I knew exactly what I was doing, but that doesn't stop the nerves. I always get nervous. I was nervous for this today. So it's probably why I'm chattering like a monkey.
No, I think that's just because you're like me and you like a good talk, if I may be so bold. So obviously we've mentioned a couple of points. We've touched a couple of times on your psychology degree. I mean, how has that helped in your current career? Very different.
It's completely different. Yeah. Again, it's just behavioral patterns and what to expect and how people are going to react. There are a lot of times in my job where it's we don't go to make people, we don't go to fix their boiler. That's one of the main things that people think, oh, I've got a gas leak, they're going to come, they're going to fix it. Our job is to make sure you're safe and nothing's adverse is going to happen to you. And I think that how to deliver a message is something that my psychology degree really helped with. I think actually my favourite part of my psychology degree was the neuroscience part of it, where I was learning all about the different parts of the brain, so that doesn't help at all. But but actually just patterns of behaviour and knowing how to approach situations, I think that's personally what I developed, not just from a degree, but then took that into my next role in when I was managing teams and how they would react to negative and positive managers when I was their manager. So it's something I've developed a long way, but again, it's people. It's because that's what I'm interested in, and that's what I'll always be interested in, I think.
Fantastic. So obviously there's very much those sort of two elements to your role. You've very much got the sort of classic engineering side of things, but you've also then it's balanced, I think, quite fascinatingly with the sort of the customer service element, which, you know, not all engineers have that face-to-face action. I mean, is there a favorite part of your job? I mean, obviously you've discussed that, obviously the satisfaction, which I guess obviously would probably top that, but
I think just I don't really have a favorite part. I just enjoy the job. I mean, being on call overnight isn't fun. But
no, I can imagine.
No, I don't sleep very well on those nights, just waiting for my phone to ring. But no, I just really just enjoy the job in general. To be honest with you, it's a fantastic job. It's varied. That's one thing that I love. I think if I had to pick something, I suppose, yeah, that no 2 days are the same. It's literally like I could be traveling an hour towards Macclesfield, or I could go around the corner. The other day I literally went to a job literally around the corner from my house. So
that's a nice commute.
Yeah, it's so varied. I could go to a gas escape where I went to one of the very first, I think it was my first week when I'd qualified and I was on my own. I got a phone call from our area manager. Rachel, a job's been sent to you. You need to go to Salford because there is a fire on a building site. And I was like, okay. And he was like, have you got your sun cream on because you're going to be hot? I was like, no. I have those jobs, and then I'll have a job where I'm just going, and it's nonetheless in very important, but still completely different. I'm going to someone's water pressure on the boiler's gone, so they thought it was the gas, but it's actually the water pressure. So there's so little things, and it's so varied. That's one of the things I absolutely love about it.
I hadn't even factored in, being on night call. I mean, that, again, it's even more dramatic. I mean, how often when you're on night call, do you actually get called out? Or most nights, are you lucky and actually most nights it goes off without a hitch?
No, you get called out most quite a lot of the time. You do, but it's part of the job.
Probably very popular with your partner, though.
No, no, not particularly. She's shaking her head at me now. No,
No.
not particularly. It is hard, and I think they've got used to me at dispatch when I answer the phone and I'm half asleep and I'm just like really groggy and going, huh, what? Okay. So yeah, it's good though. It's like I had a call out not too long ago where I turned up in, I think it was about 5 a.m. And then there was carbon monoxide alarm. The whole street had come out. The fire engines were there, and it was
Wow.
I had to instantly like, right, wake up. So it's just a different part of the job, but it's still like I say, part of the job.
I mean, that sounds, obviously I'm going to use a regional example, but that sounds like an episode of Coronation Street. Whole street out, gas leak. I think that was what really interests me about your role. It's using such technical skills and then customer service skills, but also there's a real element of danger. You have to be very cool-headed and serious. I'm sure many call outs are probably relatively routine for you, but I guess you never know if you're going to get that one that is like being called out in the middle of the night to a whole street being shut off. That's not what the average person deals with. So I find that fascinating. But I can see now we don't have any current pending questions. So I think, Rachel, unless you have anything to say, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. It has been fantastic speaking to you.
Just saying thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. It's been lovely. Very easy to put my nerves at rest speaking to you, David. So thank you very much for that.
Good. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in September at the awards, which would be great.
Yeah. Look forward to it. I'll make sure that I've dyed my hair and lost some weight ready for the awards.
Calm as you are. I think by that point, everyone will just be so happy to be out of lockdown, to be honest with you.
I think so. I agree very much so.
So thank you for watching. And please do remember to share the link for this webinar. In the next installment, Fayon will be here talking with Hemel Dias about their nomination for Innovation of the Year. As I mentioned, because obviously people might be watching these out of sequence, you can watch all of the webinars online at any time. So until then, it's goodbye, and we look forward to finally being able to celebrate the awards later this year with you all. Bye-bye.